Welcome into another episode of the Saturday Report. Today, we are talking about the Georgia Bulldogs. We're going to be going through a full schedule prediction on Georgia, talking about expectations, things we're thinking about and looking at going into the season. But I made a video last week talking more about how it feels like nobody's really talking about Georgia. Outside of local media in Athens, maybe a handful of people who cover the sport nationally or cover the sport in the SEC, I don't see a lot of people talking about Georgia. Although they seem to be in everybody's college football playoff because they haven't missed being in the top 12 in a decade now. But if you want to hear more about my thoughts on why people aren't talking about Georgia, go check out that video. I won't dive too deeply into that. What I will dive into is why you should probably be talking about Georgia this year. Number one, they're your back-to-back reigning SEC champions. They have been at the top of the conference the last 2 years, and I don't want to say it hasn't been close because it has been somewhat close. But they've made it well known that they run the SEC over the last couple of years in what fans would deem a couple of down years for Georgia. Whether it's the talent on the field or the way that they utilize that talent on the field, Georgia fans don't feel like they put their best product on the field the last 2 years. I don't feel like Kirby Smart feels like they put their best product as a program on the field the last 2 years, even if he does believe they made the most out of their roster. The difference is this roster looks a little different than it has the last couple years. I think this is arguably the best roster that Georgia's had since the 2022 national championship season. I know 2023, they had a ton of NFL talent, ton of NFL players on that roster. You also had Carson Beck in his first year starting. So whenever you don't have an experienced quarterback at the helm, a first-year starter, especially in the SEC, there's going to be challenges that come up there. This season, you've got really a lot to be looking forward to. You may not have a Brock Bowers or a Ladd McConkey on the team. You may not have somebody who's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver on the team, but you don't necessarily need a 1,000-yard receiver, especially whenever you have an offensive line that everybody is pretty consistently saying is top 5 in the country. Now, they have to live up to that potential. They've got to gel together. They got to work well, but Georgia's pretty good at putting great offensive linemen out on the field and eventually putting them into the league. So I don't really question the offensive line. How productive can they be is going to hinge. I think that's going to be the hinge point of their season. Because if the offensive line is dominant, if they can establish a run game, if they can protect Gunnar Stockton, everything opens up because his defense is going to be nasty. We'll get into that in a minute. So the offensive line, if they can meet their expectations, you got your two leading rushers back in Nate Frazier and in Chauncey Bowens. And from what I'm hearing in fall camp, it sounds like Dwight Phillips is getting some looks on first team. Maybe even, probably a good handful on second team, but I think he's getting some on first team as well, meaning you're going to have a good rotation of backs that can keep Nate Frazier, keep just one guy from shouldering the entire brunt of the load, because you need a good running back rotation if you want to make sure that your ground game is staying consistent and that you can rush the ball, 20, 30, 40 times per game. And on top of that, you do have Gunnar Stockton coming back for his second year. We just talked about Carson Beck in his first year. Look at Arch Manning last year in his first year in the SEC. Essentially all first-time starters, whether it's in the SEC or not in the SEC. All first-year starters are going to have their struggles. They're going to have their down moments. They're going to have their peaks and their valleys. Second-year and third-year starters, usually much more consistent in their play. Now, Gunnar Stockton by no means was bad last year. He had a great completion percentage, and he was a game changer with his legs at times. And you know how Gunnar Stockton wants to run the ball. He wants to run it hard. He wants to run fast. He takes a lot of hits whenever he does that, so you want to keep him upright. You want to keep him healthy. But Gunnar Stockton in year 2, if he can make the right reads, if he can hit the receivers in stride and they can actually squeeze and catch that football, this offense can be really good and potentially exceed expectations, likely exceed expectations from where people think they're going to be. The only question mark that anyone has is at wide receiver. I don't know if Kirby's actually confident in the receiver position or if he's just feigning confidence and trying to put confidence in his receivers based on what he said at SEC Media Days whenever he told that reporter, I'm really glad whenever you keep doubting our receivers because it just adds fuel to their fire. Kirby's really good at adding fuel to fire, at utilizing that fuel to light a fire under the players. So I say you don't have a Ladd McConkey, I say you don't have a Brock Bowers, but can one of those receivers step up and be that 7, 800-yard receiver? Can you get a couple of those guys where you don't have to have that 1,000-yard receiver, but you got a couple of guys out wide that can give you really good, solid production throughout the year? Because if so, you can really lean on that ground game, lean on your running backs and Gunnar Stockton in your ground game, and you can lean on this defense. The defense is what I really am excited for heading into this season. Last year, they were a top 10 defense. Overall, I think they were top 10 scoring and top 10 in a ton of different categories. You have the fifth returning production as far as defense goes in the entire country. So a top 10 defense from last year and top 10 defense last year and a top 5 returning production for this year means those guys had an extra year to develop, an extra year to learn the system, an extra year to get bigger, faster, stronger. This defense is going to be one that nobody is going to want to face heading into this year. You got your returning interception leaders, KJ Bolden and Ellis Robinson on the back end. So the DB room, it's going to be pretty good. Returning the majority of your front seven, which is just your bread and butter on a Kirby Smart defense. That front seven's always going to be fast. They're always going to be physical. They're always going to be at the point of attack, really physical and breaking through. Whether it's for sacks, whether it's for tackles for loss, it really depends on who you're playing, how they're playing you. But the defense is going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I, being an LSU fan growing up in the 2000s, the 2010s, remember all those Les Miles teams where essentially defense was winning us football games because all we knew was running the football. We hardly knew how to throw a forward pass at that time. So defense, it wins football games, it wins championships, and for me, it wins my heart because I love watching good defensive football. The combination of these two sets you up very well for a great season, number one. But number two, what really sets you up for a monster year is the combination of this and your schedule. So let's get into the schedule prediction aspect of this video. As far as schedules go in the SEC, you have one of the easier ones. Let's just put it that way. There is no quote-unquote easy schedule in the SEC, but if I had to draw a schedule out for any team that would make it easier to get to the SEC championship or the postseason, this would probably be it. Going game by game. Week 1, you play Tennessee State at home. That should be a win. Week 2, you play Western Kentucky at home. That should be a win. Any of these that are going to be easy wins, I really don't want to dive way too deeply into those. There's nothing really analytical about this. You've got the players, you've got the scheme, you've got the coaches. It's at home. Starting the season 2-0. Week 3, you play at Arkansas. Ryan Silverfield in his first year. Even though you're playing in their house, you've got the better talent roster. You've got the better coaching staff as of right now. I am going to put that in pen as a win for you. Then week 4, first real test of the year is the way that I'm looking at this. You're playing Oklahoma. You do get them at home in Sanford. Oklahoma's going to have a good defense. So this is going to be a really great test for your offense to see actually what they're made of. Oklahoma is also expected to improve offensively from last year. The difference is, or what really matters here is your defense is also supposed to improve from last year with all of this returning production. So I see this as a pretty easy win. By easy, I don't mean that you're going to be winning by 3 or 4 scores, but I do think that you pull this win out, and head into week 5 against Vanderbilt 4-0. Vanderbilt, you're playing them at home as well. I anticipate a win. Jared Curtis in his first year, I know there's still some open wounds from all of that recruiting, all the recruiting battles that happened there. I think this game should be handled pretty well on the Georgia side, and I see you coming out with a win, starting the season 5-0, heading into probably your toughest game of the year, which is going to be at Alabama. I'm still not sure what to make of Alabama heading into this year. They're going to have a first-year starter at quarterback, which I never like, especially for these big games, and this is probably going to be Alabama's first really big test of their season. You're probably both heading into this game undefeated. At this point, the last time that Georgia's beaten Alabama in Tuscaloosa was 2007. That is a monkey that I think Kirby Smart really wants to get off his back, and if there was a year to do it, this is probably going to be the year. Everybody's fading Alabama. They do have a first-year starter at quarterback, and I think that this is the year that Kirby does it. I think you go into Alabama and you get the win. And you start the season 6-0, probably the highest feeling that you could have as a Georgia fan at this point because you finally got the monkey off Kirby's back. He won in Tuscaloosa. You head into a game against Auburn, and thankfully you get that game at home. If this game was in Jordan-Hare, I probably could see it being a loss coming off a big emotional win at Alabama, but you get it at home. And I think because of that, and because you have a bye week ahead where you're not looking ahead on this game, you come out of that game with a win as well. So once you hit the bye week, you're 7-0, and you head into the Florida game. Florida game's going to be played in Atlanta this year. I'll hop off my soapbox there. I don't like it. Perfect opportunity to go for a home and home, but we didn't do that. We still need to have a neutral site game apparently. So you're playing Florida. John Summerall, first year with the program, he still is going to have some good talent there. Your talent, I think, exceeds his talent, and there's going to be a lot that Florida's still trying to piecemeal in. Still, by this point in the season, you are 9 weeks in, or they are going to be 9 weeks in, so not a lot left that they're going to want to develop with their team and their players. But you've got guys who have been in your system for years and years at this point. You've got a second-year starter at quarterback in Stockton. I like you winning that game. Then we've got the game at Ole Miss. Now, between the Alabama and the Ole Miss game, I don't think you come out of both of those games winning both of them. I think you're going to be dropping one of them. Alabama and Ole Miss has essentially been Georgia kryptonite at some point in the season for the last decade or so. Ole Miss a little bit more recently under Lane Kiffin. I get there with Pete Golding, but they still have Trinidad Chambliss. They still have Kawan Lacey. They still got a great defense. And so this is the game that I think Georgia drops. It is in Oxford, so you don't have the benefit of having this game at home. I don't think there's going to be a single SEC team that finishes the season 12-0 this season. So I think this is the game that you're going to drop, at least to this point on your schedule. Right after that, you get Missouri. You do get them at home. Missouri, they can be a little bit of a tough team, especially if you're playing them on the road. Eli Drinkwitz, he's got a lot that he's going to be trying to play for this year. Ahmad Hardy is a big question mark for that. Is he going to be back and fully healthy by this point in the season coming off of his injury, let's call it? But Missouri, I think you head out of that game with a win. In Week 12, you play at South Carolina. Another sneaky game. A lot of this depends on how well their offensive line has gelled to this point. Have they stayed healthy? How's Lenora Sellers playing? Because you are playing it in Columbia. And playing a game in Columbia, South Carolina, we've all been there. It's weird. Not that we've all been physically there. We've all had our teams play there. It's a weird place to play. If this is a night game, even worse. But I still think no matter what, you come out of this game with a win. And you head into Week 13 against Georgia Tech. And you come out of that game with a win as well. I'm not going to dive too deeply into that. I think over the last couple of seasons, there have been some close calls with Georgia Tech. Kirby is going to use that again as gasoline to light his team on fire heading into the SEC Championship week, to not look ahead to that so that they can ensure that they're going to be making the playoffs with an 11-1 record. And I think you do it. So I think you finish the season at 11-1. You position yourself perfectly to play whoever else it would be in the SEC Championship. And you've essentially established your blueprint for how you're going to run through or want to run through the playoffs. The other benefit here is because of the teams that you've played and the schedule that you've had, it's not like you're going to be rested like you just played a Big 12 schedule and you had to play one team or two teams with a heartbeat the entire year. But again, if you had to draw it up anyway, this is how you'd want the schedule to be if you want your guys to be healthy and somewhat rested heading into the postseason. So Georgia, I think there's a lot to like with this team. There's a lot to love with the schedule and how this season is going to go. But if you're a Georgia fan, let me know what you think. Are you really high on this team? Do you think this is the year that you get past those first few rounds of the playoffs? Do you think you make a national championship run? You win it all? Let me know what you think in the comments. I really appreciate y'all for watching the video. If you've made it this far, please make sure you like and subscribe. We are on the road trying to hit 500 subscribers by week 1 of the college football season. Not week 0, week 1. We're giving ourselves that extra week there. It is a gigantic, gargantuan goal that I have at this point. I haven't hit 150 subscribers yet, but once I hit 100, I really wanted to swing big. So if you could subscribe, that would be awesome and very much appreciated. And we'll catch you next time here on the Saturday Report.